Now we have to play the anacreontic song, the one I was telling you about, because this is going to blow your mind.
Okay, how do we find it?
Go down. There it is. Okay, click on the anacreontic song right there.
The link.
Yeah, and you're gonna play it. But I want to play the one that I gave you because it sounds way better than this.
Okay, I sent it to you.
Actually, let's just play it. Just play the one here.
Okay.
This is how it goes. Published in 1778, written in 1773. What was going on back then? What does this song remind you of?
Oh, say, can you see?
What if I told you those are not the lyrics? Those are not the lyrics. All right. Now play the video.
The flag was still
Play the
there.
video that I gave you. I don't think you gave it to him though, because I saw it in that list. It wasn't there.
It wasn't there?
Yeah.
How do we find it on
YouTube? So
YouTube?
I will send you the link right now, and then you can send it to him. Is that
Okay.
could that work?
Perfect.
All right. All right. Before you play it, let me just explain. Let me just say something real quick.
Yep.
This is the original lyrics of the Star-Spangled Banner that we all know today and love.
Yes. Okay.
This was written in 1773, and it was published in 1778, and it was one of the biggest songs that the revolutionary Americans were listening to. Let's play it.
To Anacreon in heaven, where he sat in full glee, a few sons of harmony sent a petition that he their inspirer and patron would be. When this answer arrived from the jolly old Grecian, voice, fiddle, and flute no longer be mute. I'll lend you my name and inspire you to boot. And besides, I'll instruct you
Here we go.
like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine.
No
And
Jesus,
besides, I'll
but Bacchus is there.
instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine.
All right, pause. Explain who Bacchus was.
Dionysus.
Dionysus.
That's the other. Bacchus and Dionysus are the same god.
Okay.
It's not like I'm saying they equate him with each other. That's two names for
And
Dionysus.
who is Dionysus?
Dionysus is the god of wine, life, party, vitriculture, swelling of fruits, freedom. In Rome, he's called Liber Pater. That's where we get the word liberal from. He's the god of liberalism. He's the god of freedom. He's the liberal god. That's why at the Olympics, that was Dionysus and not Jesus in blue. You saw that? I'm doing like the meme where the guy's connecting the dots right now. You know the guy from That's Sunday.
Yeah.
That's Always Sunny. It's
That's
still
Always Sunny in
You
Philadelphia.
know that meme where he's connecting the dots?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
kind of
One
doing
of my
that right
favorite
now.
memes.
But just to show you that Mithras and Apollo are both solar deities with solar rays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that painting, just like with the Statue of Liberty, holding the torch with the sun of rays, it represents liberty. Dionysus and Apollo are these two gods, but as Nietzsche points out, they're sort of like a contrast of each other. But they both are like, and if you want to finish that song up, because Apollo comes in that song
Let's
too.
go back to the song.
Apollo comes in that song too.
No.
guess I closed
You closed it. God damn it. Boom.
Yeah.
Go like halfway through.
A little bit before that though. A little before that though. Right there.
Instruct you like
Yes,
me
perfect.
to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. Ye sons of Anacreon, then join hand in hand, preserve unanimity, friendship, and love. 'Tis yours to support what's so happily planned. You've the sanction of God.
Jove is Jupiter.
And the fiat of Jove.
That's the name for Jupiter.
We agree, our toast let it be. May our club flourish, happy, united,
May our club flourish.
and free. And long may the sons of Anacreon entwine myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. And long may the sons of Anacreon entwine the myrtle of Venus.
All right. Venus is Lucifer. Venus is called Lucifer in Latin.
Okay.
So you have, and Bacchus is also called the phosphorus light bringer. That is a Luciferian ode right there. So it's actually arguably that there are this Illuminati New World Order of liberalism, the American Revolution, the French Revolution.
So that fat lady is the devil.
It's Luciferian.
I love
But as we talked about in the last episode, who are the bad guys? Is it the Luciferians or is it the church?
Right.
Depends on how you see it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So they do have a point. The Christians do have a point when they say that Illuminati, New World Order, Freemasonry is Luciferian. You're right, it is Luciferian. Because it's enlightened ones. Illuminati. It's Lucifer. The Enlightenment is Luciferian. Okay. So the American Revolution, this brings me to the Star-Spangled Banner. How do we get from that to the Star-Spangled Banner?
Right. How did we get to that?
In 1815, so 40 plus 50 years later, Francis Key Scott is in, I forgot what city he's in, but he's watching the Americans getting destroyed by the English, by the British Royal Navy. There it is. Francis Key Scott witnessed the bombardment of Fort McHenry by the British Royal Navy during the Battle of Baltimore. So somewhere along this adventure that he's in, they're all listening to this song and drinking. They're all listening to the anacreontic song.
Right.
And that's how you know there's a bunch of Freemasons around. 'Cause how do they even know this song exists? How do they even know this song? And they're playing this song and they're listening to it and they're all drinking. They're all trying to keep their spirits up.
Right.
And Francis Key Scott writes new lyrics to this song about this day, about the bombs bombarding. He changes the lyrics but he keeps the song because he wants to keep that spirit, that Bacchic spirit, while changing the song and Americanizing it. So now you have the Star-Spangled Banner, which is our national anthem with Bacchic, Dionysian, Luciferian roots. Nothing to do with Christianity. It's the opposite.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is fucking
our
crazy,
Star-Spangled Banner that all these Christian nationalists love. They take their head off, they put their hand on their heart, and they sing it. They don't even realize they're singing an ode to Dionysus and Lucifer.
That's funny as fuck.
An ode to the fucking devil.
It is. And he even says, with my fiddle and flute in the song. It's one of the lyrics. That's Pan, the devil, with the horns and the shaggy legs playing the flute. That's the imagery of Pan shows up in that song. Yes, I definitely pull that up. Pan, fiddle, flute. That's the flute that he uses. Keep going. I think it was right there. Oh, where's Pan?
Google's blocking it.
Google sucks. Put God Pan. God Pan.
God Pan with the fiddle and flute.
Yeah. There he is.
There we go.
There's
Look
Pan.
at that.
There he is. So that's part of the lyrics of the song. The jolly old Grecian with this fiddle and flute. That's Pan, baby. That's the devil.
Wow, dude.
So they're singing this song that we all love for our beloved country that's all about freedom and liberty and reason. That's the old Greek ways. That's the old Dionysian ways. And then the Anacreontic Society was a secret society that focused on like liberalism, freedom of expression, Dionysus and Aphrodite, sexuality, all that stuff.
So is that Pan on the left right there?
That's Pan on the left.
With the cloven feet?
Yeah.
And the fucking horns?
He's teaching the kid how to play that's the devil.
Wow, dude.
That's a Roman statue right there during the Roman Republic.
That's so fucking crazy, dude.
It gets dark. In fact, Anacreon,
well, it's only dark because the church made it dark.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Because church morality sort of changed the way people see the world. There's just no evidence that any of the founding fathers, even if they were Christian, which some of them were, which I'll point out, some of them were, they did not intend America to be a Christian national country, Christian nationalist country. Like, for example, Holy Roman Empire, which was before Germany. It's modern day Germany. They call themselves the Holy Roman Empire. Italy, Church of England in England. That was the world order before the end of the 18th century was Christian nationalism in many senses.
Yeah. Now, didn't Thomas Paine, I was reading his book, so before he started going into like digging in on the Bible, he was supportive of basically Christian morals, right? He was saying that the laws of man or the laws of a nation should be guided by the laws of God.
Yes.
And not by
a lot of people say that these founding fathers were mostly deist in the sense that they just sort of attribute a mind to the universe itself and just kind of go off there and have reason before dogma. Mm-hmm. The reason is your guiding light. A lot of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson was one. Thomas Paine too, even though Thomas Paine was so critical of Christianity, as you know, you were reading Age of Reason. He's just trying to debunk the Bible left and right. But then he'll say things like, but the real Jesus probably taught this, probably was a philosopher, probably was a good dude. Mm-hmm. You see this with Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson wrote a text called the Syllabus. And this syllabus was basically he's taking scissors to the Bible, cutting off the whole Old Testament, gone. He doesn't need that no more. All right, New Testament, what do we got? Oh, all the epistles and all that stuff, Revelation, gone. All right, what do we got left? We got 4 Gospels left. Okay, what do we got? Chopping off everything except for the red letters, which is, I say red letters because modern Bibles put Jesus's quotes in red in some modern Bibles. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying he had a Bible with red letters, but I'm saying he chops off only the quotes from Jesus himself. So all he has left is sayings from Jesus. He's got no crucifixion scene.
Who are we
Thomas Jefferson.
Jefferson did this.
And some people call it the Jefferson Bible. He called it a syllabus for whatever reason. And what he's left with is basically a list of sayings of Jesus and his philosophies. And he thought that Jesus himself was a swell dude, someone to follow, someone who challenged the status quo, someone who thought with reason. And in many ways, he's right. In many ways. So, for example, one of the Torah laws is on a Sabbath, if your animal falls into a ditch, you cannot go and get that animal out of the ditch. It's going to stay in that ditch until the next day. And hopefully it doesn't die.
Right.
Because you can't work on the Sabbath. And Jesus says, come on. You're not going to go and get we can get our animals on the Sabbath. That's not, God gave the Sabbath to man. So he's basically saying like, we can do things on the Sabbath. He picks grain on the Sabbath and gives it to his disciples. Apparently David did the same thing in one of the books from Kings and Chronicles. Yeah. So Jesus is sort of like a philosopher going against the grain, putting reason ahead of everything else. Yeah. And that's Thomas Jefferson's view of Jesus. Yeah. And Thomas Paine was a little more critical of Christianity. Another thing Thomas Paine says, I'm sorry, let me go back to Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, and just to cap off what he thought about Jesus, he said Jesus was a swell dude. Christianity I'm the only real Christian. Jefferson says this. But that's not a good thing for Christians. Christians can't really claim this, and I'll tell you why. Okay. He says the Trinity is incoherent. He says, how can one be the same as another and then the same as another? That's 3. That's polytheism. He says that's nonsense. He says the church is Platonism. He says the church is just pure Platonism. Here, let me pull up a letter from him where he writes this so I can give you the exact quote.
The church is Platonism.
Yeah, he says this.
Is he talking about like a noble lie?
Yeah. So in 1823, on April 11th, Jefferson wrote to John Adams. Mm-hmm. He says, the truth is that the greatest enemies to the doctrines of Jesus are those calling themselves Christians, these expositors of them, who have perverted them for the structure of a system of fancy, absolutely incomprehensible, and without any foundation in his genuine words. And the day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus, by the supreme being, his father, in the womb of a virgin, will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva, the goddess Minerva. Basically saying the day will come when people will realize that the stories about Jesus being the Son of God, it will be a fable. Just like we talk about the fable of Minerva. He called it a fable. Okay? And then he says, but we hope that the dawn of reason and freedom of thought in these United States will do away with all this artificial scaffolding and restore to us the primitive and genuine doctrines of this most venerated reformer of human errors. So he's saying the historical Jesus is someone that's great who lived with reason and followed. The Bible and the myths about Jesus are garbage. They're fables. We don't need them. So it's very distinct. It's not modern day Christianity. He's like a Gnostic heretic. He's a heretic. There's no way around that. There's not a single Christian or Catholic or Orthodox that would claim that and say, I believe that. None of them. It's just heresy. One more thing I want to point out. He says about the Platonism thing.
Yeah, one of the things that really stuck out to me about Thomas Paine's Age of Reason, where he's talking about Christianity being I think he calls it a pious fraud. And he said the thing about it is it gets lost in translation from the first Christian preachers who started talking about it to the second generation of Christian preachers that started talking about it, all the way down to the third generation of Christian preachers that were talking about it, until eventually it gets so far down the line, they forget that it was a fraud in the first place. Right. Especially when you have people making a livelihood by preaching it.
Yeah, and then by the 4th century, Council of Nicaea comes along, and they're holding these ecumenical councils into saying, we believe this, and this is doctrine now. Well, why didn't Jesus say that? Why didn't Jesus say that I am part of a Trinity, and if you don't believe in this Trinity, you're not a Christian? He never says that. In fact, he tells people to get to heaven, be good, treat your neighbors good. That's all he says. Right. He doesn't say he doesn't even say, but you have to believe that I resurrected.
When did the Council of Nicaea happen?
325.
325.
Yeah.
And so what was the purpose of it?
We're talking 300 years after Jesus is dead. Right. The purpose was to say that in order to be a member of the Church of Christianity, the Orthodox Catholic Church, you have to believe in a Trinity, that God and the Father and the Holy Spirit are all one.
They're all one.
So before that wasn't exactly doctrine. So Jesus himself didn't really preach that, and Thomas Jefferson is pointing this out, that this church has been corrupted by Platonism, which is what Nietzsche also agrees with. Now, in 1816, on January 9th, he wrote a letter to Charles Thomson, and he's talking about this syllabus that he wrote. And he says, I too have made a wee little book from the same materials, which I call the philosophy of Jesus. It is a paradigm of his doctrines made by cutting the text out of the book and arranging them on pages of a blank book in order a more beautiful or precious morsel of ethics I have ever seen. It is a document in proof that I am a real Christian, that is to say, a disciple of the doctrines of Jesus, very different from the Platonist who will call me an infidel. He's saying the church are a bunch of Platonists. They're not Christians. This is all philosophy, and they're not actually following reason. Jesus, he thinks, in his opinion, Jesus followed reason. Now, me personally, I think he's going too far. Why? I think you don't even need Jesus. Just follow reason, which is what Thomas Paine was doing. Thomas Paine was just like, reason. That's it. That's your logos. And so, but I guess I could see what Thomas Jefferson was doing when 90% of your population are Christians. You kind of have to play the game. Right. So you really don't have a choice there. But so.
And the Thomas Paine thing is super interesting. Like reading his book about the Age of Reason. Like I told you, like the quote out of that book that I love the most, where he was saying, "It's only by the exercise of reason that man can come to discover God." And he's like, take away that reason, and he would be incapable of understanding anything. And it makes sense the way he elucidates it, where he's saying like someone cannot, like you don't come from nothing. Everything comes from something. Any reasonable person can understand that one thing comes from something else. But like, where did the first thing come from, right? Like where did the first man come from? Reasonably, we can't fill in that blank. So we fill in the gaps with God.
Right. God of the gaps.
Because there's we have to be able to understand the way the universe works some way, right?
That's exactly what Thomas Paine was saying in Age of Reason.
Yes.
He's laying out, he's like, we've always believed that the gods were in control of the rain, or they're in control of the tsunamis and the floods.
Right.
And then we figured out what was really happening. There's a science behind it. There's a cause and effect. And then we said, okay, well, God's behind the other things like the sun, or why does the earth move, or why are the stars moving? God's got to be that.
Right.
And it's moving into the gaps where you end up getting like wherever we would, any mysteries we have, anything we can't figure out, that's God.
Right.
Which I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
I think people have a right to believe in mysteries being divine.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. And then, the other great thing that he elucidates really well is that when you look at the Old Testament, he compares it to like anybody explaining, like in a court of law, for example. If I go into a courtroom and I give testimony based on an anonymous source saying, I got this evidence from somebody who's anonymous, that would never hold up in a court of law. Not even in real life. If I told you something I heard something from somebody who's anonymous, like you could believe me if you chose to, but you have no reason to believe what I'm saying.
Right. And that's what
add a whole nother layer onto it. Now I'm telling you, not only is the source anonymous, but the fucking sun stood still, or this person spoke face to face with God.
Right.
Now you're just taking it to a point where it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's what he says the Bible is comprised of. It's comprised of these stories who were composed, but we don't know who the authors were. And the explanations they're getting are from anonymous sources.
Right.
And they're ridiculous claims.
Yep. He points out that Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, we don't even know if those are the real names. He's one of the people who put that together.
Yeah.
And he also points out that a lot of the stuff that we find in the Bible seems to also be drawing from other pagan myths.
Yes.
He points that out as well. And as you said, the sources for the claims, a big example is Paul. Paul's epistle to Corinthians is the big one. In Corinthians, Paul says that Jesus returned to 500 people. And first he appeared to Cephas, then he appeared to James, then he appeared to 500 people. And Paul never was there. Paul doesn't even name who the 500 people were.
Right.
So it's not even a primary source. It's not even a secondary source. It's kind of a third-hand source. 500 people will say this too. Christian apologists will say, we have 500 eyewitnesses that saw Jesus. Who are they? What are their names? What's their testimony? No, you have one text that says they heard from a rumor. They heard a rumor that 500 people saw him. That's not 500 individual testimonies. That's one third-hand source.
That was written down for the first time how many years after it allegedly happened?
Probably a decade after.
10 years.
Paul wrote it within a decade. Paul wrote pretty early.
Okay.
So Paul's letters, I think it's like
40-something?
40-something. Yeah, Paul wrote it about 10 years later. Yeah. Paul, maybe 20. I don't know. 10. Paul, you have to give that credit. Yeah. Paul wrote his letter pretty early. But you're telling me that 500 people saw a risen Jesus and they didn't write anything down. And only Paul wrote it down. Nobody says anything. Nobody says, I saw a miracle today. My name is this place. I live in this city. Boom, write that out there.
Right.
Nobody else. It doesn't get to anyone. Only Paul is the only one that knows this. Sorry.
And I think you pointed it out on the first podcast that we did together, that in the Old Testament, the writings, the books of Noah were written allegedly like 800 to 900 years after he died. The first writings of...
Even later than that.
Even longer.
Because Noah... Supposedly, if let's say Noah lived and we do the math, we would end up, so this is how we do the math. You can look in Luke's genealogy, you can look in Matthew's genealogy, and you can do the math between all the sons and fathers, and you go all the way back to Noah.
Yes.
You would end up plus or minus 50 years, because some of them are like, we don't really know exactly when they died, but we're just going to give them 10 to 20 years gap, right? You can give or take some. You end up around 2500 BCE for Noah. I think that's what it is. Yeah, 2000 BCE for Noah. Give or take some. But you can even go, just to give it, when did Noah live? You can look that up. It's a good idea. But
Noah when?
So I was going to say, I'm in the middle. Give or take some. We don't know exactly when, but at the latest, it's going to be 3000. At the shortest, and that's if we're doing all the math about who the fathers of Josiah, Hezekiah, all the people in Jesus' genealogy going back to Noah.
Right.
You would end up somewhere between there. Okay. So
3,000 to
so
2,000.
the story of Noah. So let's go with the latest, or let's go with the earliest. Let's give them a bone. Let's go with 1998 BCE. Let's say Noah died in 1998 BCE. Okay, so that means the story of Noah doesn't show up in literature until 300 BC.
The first
Time
writing
Noah is the first time
300?
Noah shows up in anyone's sources is 300 BC. That's over 1,000 years plus.
1,600 years.
1,600 years have gone by, and nobody mentions Noah ever.
That's pretty suspect.
Now
That is insane.
you do have other flood stories before Noah.
Yeah.
You have Ushnapishtim, you have Deucalion, you have Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yep.
But those don't mention Noah. Those are other guys doing flood stuff. Noah
Flood stuff.
Yeah, Noah shows up. Noah shows up in the primary sources around 300
Right,
BC.
right.
Like he points out, 1,600 years have gone by. That's why when you said 900, I said it's more than that. 1,600. And that's
Yeah.
if you give them the latest date. It might even be more than that. If I said 2,500, we're looking at 2,000 years before Noah shows up in the history. It's made up. It's made up mythology.
It's insane.
Let's just be real here.
Yeah.
You know, I know it gives a lot of people comfort to think that we have it all figured out. Religion has always been correct, but it's just not true. That I'm not even an atheist. I'm just saying that this one isn't true, but I don't know what the truth is. I'm leaving it open. I think
Right.
that's the best way. I think it's the best way to approach it.
And then he also said that he thinks the book of Job is the one book that doesn't belong in the biblical canon.
Who said that?
Thomas Paine.
Oh,
He said the book of Job.
I can see why he'd say that.
He said it stands totally disconnected from the other books.
it does because it doesn't mention Abraham or Noah or Jacob or 12 tribes. It doesn't even mention Israel.
And it mentions like astronomical names.
Yeah,
and
it has
There's no
zodiac
evidence.
figures in it.
And there's no evidence that the Jews knew anything about this stuff.
Well, they do eventually, but I think I know what he means. I think I know what he means. Yeah.
He said they had
Yeah.
no knowledge of astronomy at the time it was written.
Yes. So he's saying when Job was supposedly written, they wouldn't have had that information yet. It would have been centuries later. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Yeah, Job is a weird book. It does stand in its own category.
Yeah, that's wild shit, dude.
It doesn't even happen in Israel. It happens in the land of Uz. And no one even knows. U-Z. No one even knows where that is. He never mentions the 12 tribes. Doesn't mention Jerusalem. Doesn't mention Jacob or Noah or Moses or the laws or the Torah. It's just randomly by itself. Look at location mentioned in the Old Testament prominently in the book of there is a man in the land of Uz. It is mentioned. It is most often theorized that the land is Uz, so they don't really know for sure.
Right.
They're just kind of guessing. But yeah, but yeah. So the founding. I just want to. I think if there's anything I'm really trying to like drive home, is that these revolutions that happened between the end of the 18th century through the middle of the 19th century with American Revolution, French Revolution, and so forth, are driven not by Judeo-Christian ethics, but the opposite of that. The actual rejection of those things. And that's what our Constitution is kind of built on. It's kind of built on the ethics that are opposing Judeo-Christianity and looking and sort of drawing from the old Roman Republic of the pagan culture,
Right.
the Dionysian Apollonian culture.
Yeah.
You know,
That's pretty fucking wild, dude.
it is.
In the Bhagavad Gita, I made this connection when I was preparing for this podcast. I was reading the whole story about how is it Krishna
Krishna.
puts
Arjun.
a fucking drug in his eyes
Arjun.
to make him see
His final form or his universal
I
form.
fucking saw that. I was
that.
like, oh
It's the soma.
my god,
It's the soma. That's what it is. It's the equivalent of the Greek kukion. It's a psychedelic drink, and yeah.
But it says they literally put it in his eyes so that he can see.
So he can see. Isn't that awesome?
Dude, that's incredible.
They were saying that the Indo-European word gehu, which means to like pour or libate, is where we get the word God from. The English word for God comes from an Indo-European word that's also cognate with kaikion and soma and haoma. So drugs, the ancient word for drugs, the ancient drugs, I should say, are all cognate with each other, where it goes back to Indo-European word gehu. That word gehu is cognate with the word God in English. So it's like, I can actually show you this. If you look up Indo-European vocabulary.
Look at all those fucking elephants, dude.
It's amazing, dude. That's amazing. And by the way, the Indians are Indo-Europeans, their language.
And I think the Islamists came in and tried to destroy all this stuff.
They did. Indo-European vocabulary. Yeah, right there. All right. Now, can you do a word search for... Do a word search.
I wonder if there's like there you go.
No. That, I know it's in that one. That's why. That's why I said
the wiki.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you do a word search, type in the word libate, Libate. All right. See, look at this. Okay, this is going to be crazy.
To pour or invoke.
Now look on the right. It's cognate with homa, the oblation of a Vedic ritual. That's the drug. Soma. That's what it's called. Or it's called homa.
Whoa.
So the word God. If you go up just a little bit, so you can see the top where it says go up a little.
English, God.
Yeah. So you see Indo-European gehu, English God, Latin, I don't know where fundu comes from, but these people know. And then in Sanskrit, homa. So this drug,
What is homa?
that's the soma drink. Oh. That's the drink that makes you see the gods.
Holy shit.
So our word for God has a cognate with the drugs that Krishna is using.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy, dude.
So that the word God's connected to drugs.
Yes, I think it is. Dude, after literally falling down this rabbit hole with you and Amun like a couple months ago, what makes the most sense to me, the easiest way for me to understand this is that these ancient people were taking drugs and it showed them the fucking fabric of the universe.
Yeah.
And they thought that was God.
Well, as I've mentioned many times before, I've had a lot of experiences with DMT, and those experiences with DMT has me convinced that our religion comes from psychedelic experiences.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, how they got away from that stuff. A lot of primary sources reflect it. You have sources of the Hebrew Levites smoking cannabis in the holy of holies, or hotboxing it, like lighting it on an altar, letting the whole thing get filled with smoke, and it's the aroma of God. You have the Kakian in Greece, drinking the wine mixed with the ergot.
Yep.
You have the soma. You have the haoma in Persia. You have all these different types of psychedelics, and they're all connected to these major priesthoods. Then you have a Eucharist in Christianity, and then all of a sudden, drugs are gone. So it's like,
What was the theriac? That was like a bunch of snake venoms.
the theriac was
Viper
was
venoms.
a Roman era drug mixed with venoms. Yeah, that's what Galen.
There was a
writes.
ton of shit. Can you find the ingredients list?
I don't know if we know it all, but you can look it up. Yeah.
Type in the ingredients list for the theriac. I think it was like 12 different North African viper venoms.
Oh, they do know it. I didn't know they knew it. I thought it was a mystery.
Here we go. According to commentary on Exodus, Kitisa, the Spanish scholar Moses Ben Nachman lists the ingredients of the theriac: leaven, honey, flesh of wild beasts and reptiles, dried scorpion, and viper. Oh, it was flesh of viper.
Dried scorpion. What the hell? And I know that dried scorpion is a psychedelic.
Oh, here-
I found that out.
They got a bunch of roots.
Really?
I thought
Roots.
Amun said they had a bunch of
Roots. Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop right there. That's where you get DMT from extracting from roots.
Is it a specific root?
It's almost every root has some sort of DMT in it. Every single kind of root. So Mimosa hostilis root bark.
Cinnamon.
So Mimosa hostilis root bark and Acacia confusia root bark have the highest levels of DMT.
Right.
But it's said that every kind of root bark has some little bit of DMT in it. So those can all have DMT in it, just a little bit amounts of it.
Right. Didn't Amun also say there was like bodily fluids mixed in there?
Yeah.
Flowers.
Fruits and seeds. Oh, by the way, you have to add as what's called Syrian rue seeds to your acacia root bark to convert it from DMT to ayahuasca, because it's an MAO inhibitor.
Right.
So those seeds might be MAO inhibitors.
How did they figure that
I
shit
don't
out,
know,
dude?
But if I had to guess, that's what's going on. You have the seeds, you have the MAO inhibitors, you have the DMT roots, and you have all these other types of stuff mixing up with this, making this super magic potion to meet the gods with.
Good God, that's a ton of ingredients.
I know, it's nuts, dude.
That's
it's
more,
nuts.
That's
I
more
wonder
than
if
what's in your-
anyone's tried to recreate it like in modern times.
I want to.
Like I want to see. I
Want
want
to do it when I come down here?
Yeah, I want like some sort of like pharmacologist chemist.
Yeah, I would need some help
to
with
try
that.
to try to do this shit and try to make it. I don't know if it'd be ethical. If you really took
It's
almonds,
easy to make DMT,
If
though.
you took almonds, literally,
Anyone can make DMT. It's super easy.
DMT. Super
It's
easy. to
so
make?
easy to do. You just get acacia confused with root bark, or mimosa hostilis root bark. It's legal because you can use it as dye, purple dye. Purple dye. I'm not kidding. You can use it as purple dye. I've done it before. Isn't that mind blowing? This is why I take almond seriously sometimes, because you can.
Sometimes.
Dude, he's right. You know what I mean? But so okay, you can use that purple dye, and it's legal for that.
Yeah.
But if you don't use it as purple dye, you can add it to hot boiled water, and you'll see the layers mix up together. You got to add caustic soda. You got to mix it up with caustic soda, get it real hot, and then the layers start to separate. Shake it up real good. Probably let it sit for a day in a hot bath. The next day, you add the naphtha. Naphtha's in the Bible too. Anyways, naphtha's in the Bible. So you add it with the naphtha. Then you see a thin layer on top that's clear, and a big thick purple layer on the bottom. You extract the thin clear layer with a pipette, something you extract it with. Get a little Pyrex. This is how easy it is. I'm almost done. You get a little Pyrex dish, a glass Pyrex dish, squirt the extraction in there, put it in the freezer overnight. The next day, when you take it out of the freezer, you'll see all the DMT crystals on the bottom.
Really?
Naphtha does not freeze. So you dump the naphtha out, put it back in your dish or whatever. You can reuse naphtha like 7 times. And then you dry out those crystals, and it's pure DMT.
Wow.
It's that easy. It's
You
that
you
easy.
smoke it. It's the best way to do it.
Smoke it. Yeah. You have to vaporize it.
Right.
So
You get fucking.
I just taught your audience how to make DMT.
You go to heaven for
I have.
9, 10
I
minutes.
have experiences that I won't even do justice to try to talk about it. It's only just it's just that it's life changing.
I told you about that.
Like you
dude who came
go
on
into
the
different
podcast.
places and come back. You literally are gone and come back.
I told you about that.
Especially
dude.
if you close your eyes and do it.
Really?
I used to take a beanie, just put it over my eyes when I did it, because when your eyes are closed, you go into your head, and you could just drift off into outer space. When your eyes are open, you're focusing on your environment, and then you're not focused on. You want to meditate. You want to be like sitting there like this. That's why I just put a beanie over my head, and any distraction. I'll even put earplugs in, because any sounds from the outside will wake you up.
How often, when in your heyday, how often would you do it?
There was time periods where I would do it every day.
Really?
There was time periods where I did that. I
can't
had
imagine
some
my biggest fear with it-
I had some DMT phases. Let's say that
My biggest fear with it is not being able to come back to reality.
it's never happened ever. It's impossible.
Never?
It's impossible. It's impossible.
I mean, not being
no,
like
because
not
the
being.
half life of DMT is it's physically impossible.
I don't mean like permanently tripping. I mean like it actually
Causes something?
rewires your brain permanently to
It
where
does.
you no longer think the way you used to
No,
think.
it does in a good way. I think it makes people smarter. I think it made me smarter. I used to be a dumbass. I used to never do good in school. I used to not pay attention to anything. Now I'm all.
think it
now
impro- it
I think it
increases
improved.
IQ?
I think it improved my thinking. I honestly do think that, because ever since when I had that DMT phase, I was kind of just like a loser, pouring concrete and living in a dumpy apartment. And then after that, I got really I started wondering about things more. Started studying things more. Started researching things more. And then I wound up Gnostic Informant. And there's got to be some connection that way, right?
Yeah, but does that happen to everybody though? Or are there some people that just fucking never leave their apartments and just fucking stay?
Maybe. That I couldn't tell you.
It's interesting. I told you I had a guy, Andrew Gallimore, on the show about a year ago, who's in Tokyo, and he's studying this stuff full time, and he's doing this extended state DMT research where he gives people like an IV drip of DMT all day, where they keep him in, they pull him out briefly, and it's like, tell me what you're seeing, tell me what's going on, and they're trying to like map this whole DMT realm to figure out what the fuck's really going on and what's there. Like, is there a veil that that drops when you're not on it?
I wonder how successful that's going to be, because like I said, when you're on it and people are talking to you, it takes away from the experience. It's hard to stay focused because people who've done it are going to understand what I'm saying about this.
Yeah.
There is some sort of like, you have to kind of daze off for it to work. You have to kind of doze yourself off. If you're focused on the world, if you're focused on all this, you'll stay here. You can like hold on to this world if you really wanted to. If you let yourself doze off and you just kind of, you know how you daydream and you're just like, if you do that, you're gonna go off into another. That's how you blast off from dozing off, letting yourself slip. Like I said, that's why I use the beanie. When you close your eyes and do it, it's the best way to do it because you're not focusing on the world around you. You're just in your head, and that's those are the best ones. When you're just gone in your head,
Right.
you just start seeing like anything. Start seeing colors, start seeing shapes, start seeing crystals, start seeing all kinds of weird smoke. Sometimes it's all smoky or something. Like it's really weird, dude. It's hard to explain. And Joe Rogan did a good job explaining it a long time ago. This is from an old clip where Joe Rogan says, it's like, imagine if you had liquid gold in your hands and you're trying to hold on to it and it just slips through your fingers. That's what it's like. You can't hold on to it. You want to hold on to it, but you can't
take it with you.
Can't take it with you.
Really?
You try to remember things. Like I've always told people my biggest breakthrough when I met a god that looked like Brahma. And I tell people this all the time, and I'll never forget it. I remember it like it was yesterday. But I specifically remember having a telepathic conversation with this being on DMT, but I don't remember what it was. When I came back down, I forgot it. I don't remember what the hell we were talking about. Who knows? I have no idea. So how do you not remember that? I just don't remember it.
Yeah.
It's like when you wake up from a dream. Every morning you wake up from a dream and you're like, I had a crazy dream. And then 5 minutes later you get up, walk around, you forget your dream.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. And I think they're dreams. I think DMT is like dreaming.
There's a guy. There's a video I watched on YouTube once where this guy was explaining how when he used to take DMT or I think he was taking mushrooms or DMT. Anyway, when he was young, he got in a car crash and he almost died. And he said he had this near death experience where he saw all these beings and stuff. Because people say like when you have a near death experience, there's reports of people like going into different realms and like seeing crazy shit. He said this happened to him when he was young. And then when he got older, he went with his buddy on top of a mountaintop and he took either DMT, I think it was DMT. And he said he saw the same entity he saw during his near-death experience. And he said the entity said to him, he's like, you're not supposed to be here.
What did it look like? Do you remember?
I don't know. You'd have to pull up the video again. But he said,
I think it maps onto our own understanding of things. And at that time when I was doing that, I don't remember ever researching Hinduism, but there might have been a time where I saw Brahma in a painting and it just kind of stuck into my deep consciousness. And when I tripped, I saw that and thought that was like what God should look like for whatever reason. But I don't think I did. I don't remember being big. I remember finding that. I remember seeing images of Brahma later and being like, "That's the guy I saw on DMT." So it's like it is a little weird that played out that way. Just to be honest.
Yeah, it's an interesting correlation.
Like he had multiple hands on one side and they were all moving. You know how
I remember you telling me this.
The Indian gods had that, and it was like this on the other side, and his head was multiple heads spinning. And he was sitting Indian style, and he was wearing robes, like golden shiny robes, white golden shiny robes, and there was like things orbiting him, like space, like planets or something, or stars or something. There was like shapes. It looked like they were orbiting him.
Yeah,
and it was all smoky in the room.
Yeah,
like white smoke was everywhere. It was weird, and that was one of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had. And it stuck with me. Like it's like life changing shit.
Yeah.
And then I had random ones. Like one of the random ones that I had was me and the girlfriend I was with at the time. We went to the park in some like forest somewhere. I don't know where we were. And I was driving the car, and there was a lanyard over my with the keys of the car. And she wasn't doing it, but I was. She was just there. I took a rip of it. And all of a sudden, the car keys, this is the car keys, started shooting lightning bolts out. And I thought I was going to hit her and kill her. Started shooting, zoo, 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 zoo. And then all of a sudden, I turned around and I looked up and I saw in the sky, it looked like Mickey Mouse. And he was taking clouds. He was in the sky. It looked like he was like just sitting in the sky. And he was grabbing the clouds and putting them over himself like a blanket. And he was turning away. Like he was like cold and he was taking the blankets and covering himself with it.
Right.
It was just random. So it had no meaning. Just my mind was just gone. And the first time I ever did it, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to work or not. But I made it myself with my friend from Lebanon. Muslim dude was doing it with me. And I haven't talked to that guy in a while. But anyways, so we're at his apartment, we're making it, and we do it. We had a what is it called? A volcano vaporizer.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do for DMT because it just perfectly vaporizes it. Took a rip, got that bitter taste, and I look at my friend and his face is just like he has an eye on his forehead. He had third eye growing out of his head. And I go, I gotta go outside. I went outside and everything was beautiful. The plants were like had faces on them. They're talking and breathing. The sky was beautiful, blue, perfect sunny day out. But then I looked up and I saw a spaceship fly by. And I'm not kidding, it looked so real. I thought I was like, and it was huge. It was like half the sky was a spaceship flying right past me. And I was like, do you see that? My friend just came back down from doing his head. He was just like, whoa. And then we walked around for 5 minutes and then it was gone. And I was like, do you feel it anymore? He's like, no. I'm like, that's it? And my first time, I remember people saying it takes 10, 15.
Right.
And I remember looking at my friend. I go, how much time has gone by? The third friend we were with didn't do it. He's like 5 minutes. I go, what? I was like, it felt like at least 20 minutes. He's like, no, that was 5 minutes.
Wow.
So it was kind of crazy.
Yeah. What if all that shit's just there all the time?
That's what people think.
All the shit you see on DMT.
The shit you see on is
and
actually,
the DMT is just tearing down your senses.
it like gives you an antenna. So like you can like all of a sudden now you're locked in like Bluetooth. Like you can hear it or you can see it. You know, it's kind of crazy to think about.